Okay, good evening, members of council, staff, and the general public. Welcome to our October 19th council meeting. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. If I can ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Kaylin, if you would please. Okay, thank you, Kaylin. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, we have, moving from information only, the letter from the request for the donation of service land from Habitat for Humanity, as well as item 3, letter for the request to rename the community building.
I cannot hear Kaylin at all. Very, very lightly.
Is that any better?
No. Okay, I think so. Letter request for donation of services of lands will be pulled out of information only. Letter request to rename community building in Lancaster Optimist. Hazardous waste day and building permits statistics third quarter. Stephanie asked for the majority of them, and I believe Martin is joining her with number 1 and number 3. Is there any other members of council have any other further additions? Not seeing none, so that would be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. I'm sorry, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the council of the Township of South Glengarry, including the closed session minutes held on October 5th, 2020, be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the minutes of the public meeting of the council of the Township of South Glengarry held on October 5th, 2020 be adopted. That will be adopted as amended. There was a few mistakes in the public meeting minutes, so we corrected those. So that'll be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. And presentation and delegations. We have South Glengarry Fire Service retirement presentation. Chief Robertson.
Good evening, members of council. I'd like to take a few moments of your time tonight to publicly offer thanks to a retiring member of our fire service. Tonight, we celebrate the career of Paul Charbonneau and his 47 years of active service as a volunteer firefighter. Paul first joined the Williamstown Fire Department right out of high school, just a few years ago. And after spent some years there, then moved to the village of Lancaster and transferred to the Lancaster Fire Department. He ends his career with an amalgamated South Glengarry Fire Service after many years of assisting the public and department members every chance he could. Personally, I've been privileged to spend all 26 years of my career with Paul. Paul, on behalf of the Council, South Glengarry Fire Service, and all residents of South Glengarry, I'd like to present you with this letter of appreciation and thank you for your commitment to your community. And another day I'd shake your hand, but we'll remember all the times that I did. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Paul, on behalf of council, I can honestly say thank you very much for your services. It's a service that not everyone wants to do. To spend that many years in the fire service, we greatly appreciate it on behalf of all the residents here in South Glengarry and council. So thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move to B is the Ontario Trillium Foundation, Resilient Communities. Is Karen Franklin on? Yes, I see her now.
Good evening. How are you? Can you
Very
hear
well,
me?
thank you. Yourself. Yes, we can hear you good.
Okay. I'm going to try to share a screen. This is quite new to me. I'm not being used to this particular technology, so bear with me. Okay, I think you see it.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It can take a moment sometimes, and I have it if it doesn't work for you, ma'am.
Okay, yes. Counting on you, Kaylin. I've selected a screen, so there we go. Can you see it?
It's coming up. Yep,
Okay.
we're good to go.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, fellow staff, and members of the public in attendance. I am here tonight to ask for council's support in developing a business case and application to the Ontario Trillium Foundation under the Resilient Communities Fund for an expansion to the Lancaster Branch Library facility. Public libraries provide an important public space in their communities. They provide a unique place for people that doesn't require any reason for people to be there or for them to have to spend any money. They are places people come to access information or other educational or recreational resources, to have meetings, or attend lectures or other presentations, to meet friends, and to simply come and stay a while. Public libraries provide a space for people to gather, to learn, to collaborate, and to socialize. As you know, in mid-March, like many businesses and organizations, the SDG Library had to close all branches, shuttering some of the only publicly owned public spaces in the communities we serve. Under the pandemic, people are appreciating the spaces that we have. They realize how important these amenities are for our physical and mental well-being. But not all kinds of public spaces are able to be appreciated in the same ways. Enclosed public spaces, like libraries, face significant challenges due to the physical distancing regulations and ongoing fears about indoor spread of the virus. The global pandemic has changed how libraries are being used and seen, requiring us to pivot and change how we operate. SDG Library staff are working hard to adapt to these changes and to provide safe ways for people to access our services. At the Lancaster branch, gotta change my slide, there we go. At the Lancaster branch, it has been particularly challenging to reopen in this new environment. Please allow me to give you a brief description of the Lancaster facility to help illustrate these challenges. The branch is located in a prime downtown corner beside the BMO and in front of the post office. The branch is housed in an historic building built in 1903 and designated the South Glengarry Heritage Property in the year 2000. The front of the building is set back, well back from the curb. This outdoor space is sometimes used for gardens, holiday lights, and other community activities. The front entrance, although not AODA compliant, is well maintained by the municipality. There is an accessible entrance at the back of the building. Parking for the branch relies on street parking on the main and side streets. Although parking can occasionally present some challenges, it rarely is an issue, as the library's location is easily walkable from throughout the business area of Lancaster. This beautiful historic building consists of 959 square feet of library space, which is about 1,500 square feet below current minimum provincial guidelines for public library space. It is used to house approximately 6,300 collection items. Again, industry standards indicate that even a small library facility should have at least 8,500 items. Normally, there are 2 public computer stations and a laptop or iPad chair available, a tiny children's area, and a table. And you can see that there in the top left corner. It's normally seats 4 people, but currently it's seating 1. And this table would be used for meeting and for collaborating. Hosting programs or meetings in the branch always requires significant shifting of furniture, creative seating arrangements, and even an encouragement of small attendance. There's also a small office space that is used by library staff located beside the front entrance, as well as a very small shared public staff washroom, also located within that office space. In spite of its size, Lancaster branch is considered the resource library for South Glengarry residents, meaning that it should offer more hours of operation, house larger collections, and provide a wider array of programming options than a neighborhood branch like Williamstown. A minor renovation did take place in 2019 with the installation of new shelves and carpeting to refresh the look of the space. Of all the municipally owned SDG library branches located throughout the counties, Lancaster is the smallest, the most historic, and the only facility that has been consistently used for library services. Its sole purpose was and is to serve the public. Lancaster branch has long been recognized by residents of South Glengarry as a special destination with a special purpose. However, current and future library activities now require more space to continue to properly serve the community. Since June, we have slowly been reopening some of our branches, including Lancaster branch. We've been gradually restoring some of the services we offer, but in the case of Lancaster, with huge limitations, mainly due to the very small size of the facility. Within current guidelines and restrictions, we are only able to provide 1 public computer that can be used safely and cleaned properly between uses. We are allowing patrons to come into the branch, browse the collections, and remain for short stays. However, we must limit capacity to a maximum of 5 people, including staff, to be permitted in the branch at one time. To help offset this restriction, we have resumed our regular 44 hours per week hours of operation which is 14 hours more than our other limited access branches currently have. We are also required to use some of the space for quarantining returned library materials, which adds to the cramped setup in the branch. And valuable staff workspace is being used to store those materials. We are at this time reluctant to allow the public to use the very small single bathroom in the branch, as getting to it and from it poses risks to others, and it is necessary to stop business whenever the bathroom is used in order to clean that area. Curbside pickup is not available at this location. The Ontario Trillium Foundation's Resilient Communities Fund is providing an opportunity to address these impacts and make improvements that would benefit this community, both in the short and long term. This one-time funding is intended to support the nonprofit sector to recover and rebuild from the impacts emerging from COVID-19. A successful application would significantly help to pay for an expansion to the facility, to address the space issues and continue to safely provide library services to the community. A much needed addition would not only address the immediate needs due to COVID-19, but would also meet the changing needs beyond the pandemic, providing space for collections, collaboration, programs, and other social connections to occur in this public space. This application would be in line with the municipality's goal to facilitate access to services. A renovated library space would help to improve a supply of culture in South Glengarry. It would also address the township's goal to work collaboratively with partners to provide services to residents of South Glengarry. Now for the nitty-gritty. The application itself would need to be submitted by the Township of South Glengarry, as the SDG library is not eligible for OTF grants on its own. The library staff is prepared to work closely with the municipality to complete this application. The application would request $150,000, the maximum amount that the fund will provide, to assist organizations in their recovery from the immediate impacts of COVID-19 and to build their resiliency for future demands and impacts. As a township building, the additional costs for the expansion would need to be budgeted for by South Glengarry. As a rough estimate, other similar expansion projects such as this have cost approximately $300,000. But we would confirm that estimate once we have council support to prepare an application. While we do anticipate there would be significant investment required for the township, there would also be the opportunity to regain some of these funds over the years through an increased revenue from the rental of a larger facility to the library. And as mentioned, this program is presenting an opportunity to potentially secure funding to assist in a much needed expansion of the facility and thereby improve services to the community. The deadline for submissions to OTF is December 2nd, 2020. So we're up against a bit of a time clock. At this time, we are asking council and the municipality to support this application and to work with library staff to present a business case and an application for the funding. Any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Franklin, for the presentation. I'll open up to questions. Excuse me, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you for your presentation, Karen. I guess the question that I have is, are there any implications with this building being designated a heritage building for putting on an addition? I think what you want to do is something that we should seriously consider. Just wondering if there's any implications with that being a building being designated a heritage building.
Probably, I would not be at least bit surprised. I think there are a few on attending this meeting right now who've probably heard me go on a little bit about my own childhood branch of the Norfolk County Library System, which indeed my little branch was in Port Rowan, a little village, and they did exactly what I'm proposing is adding an addition on the kind of the front and side of the existing heritage building, and they completely incorporated the heritage building into their design and into the architectural drafts that went into it. So while I do certainly believe, and I would very much respect the integrity of the historic edifice that is Lancaster Branch, I have seen in my own experience that it can be done in a way that is very tasteful, I guess is the best way to do it, and supports that integrity.
Okay, I might go to ask Ewan or Joanne if they can verify in regards to the heritage building. I believe you would have to have permission from the province to expand that building, but they can clear that up if one of them are there, please.
Yes, I can speak to that briefly, Mr. Mayor. We would work with Ontario Heritage Trust to determine what kind of restrictions are placed on that structure given the age of the structure and how it's registered. But that's something that we can look into. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Karen, for your presentation and all that you do with the library. I guess my question was in regards to your cost estimate of roughly 300,000. Was that, you said comparable projects, is that comparable in SD&G, or is that comparable on work to heritage buildings included? I guess was the heritage status concerned me as well.
It's been a few years, but the library during my time here with the library has undertaken a fairly significant expansion at our Williamstown location, where I don't think the original building was designated heritage, but it did. I know that, you know, being there through the time, I know that it was about $300,000 that they got a $1,500 square foot addition added to the branch.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
When it was done? I think that would be, well, less than 10 years ago for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the subsequent. Karen, did you say you wanted to, do you have any drawings of what's proposed yet, or you're just at the infancy of you would like to put a business case together?
Yes, I mean, I think, you know, Councillor Warden, we're busy people. We don't mind taking on work, but if we don't have the support, then we're going to hold off on starting that work. But that can be done. We have gone and measured out the lot around the existing facility. We, of course, have measured out the existing branch, and I have my my photos from my childhood library at hand. A very similar building that was built around in a very similar location in a very similar sized community. Yeah.
Okay, we should have coffee at Tilly's in a couple of days.
That sounds very good. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Being a member of the library board for a number of years and being the chair for the last year and a half or two, but I've been the chair for a number of years prior to that. But every location that we have throughout SD&G several times, we go to different branches on a regular basis, and I can assure you Lancaster is probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest branch that we have that exists. It's going to continue to make sure that these libraries do stay open. At some point, we're going to need to expand that branch. So this is an opportunity. Maybe we can get some funding for it. I know Councillor Jaworski had a question, but at some point I'd like to move this back to Mr. Ladisare probably and Mr. Lachlan McDonald to come up with a report for our next council meeting. But I'll ask Councillor Jaworski comment or question if she would, please.
Oh, no, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for asking staff to come back with a report, because I think I'm very interested in what this could be. I know that during the pandemic, I did get calls about the library and when they would open again and when people would be able to use their services. So I think, definitely, I think there's renewed interest and, utilization of the library services, in particular the e-services, but also, in terms of connectivity, a lot of people rely on getting into the library to access material and to access connection to the internet. So I'm definitely very interested in seeing what are the possibilities here, but in more detail. Thank you.
We'll just send it back to staff to have them come back at a later date, hopefully earlier than later. Okay, perfect. Mrs. Franklin, we will certainly get back to you in regards to when we'll be on the next agenda, and we appreciate your time and your presentation this evening. And we look forward to that we can do something with you to expand that branch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to staff reports. Road widening dedication, Pine Ridge Road. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council, members of staff and the public. This is a road widening condition of a severance application. It is a 13-foot section of widening on Pine Ridge Road that would provide the municipality with the standard 20-meter right-of-way. This is the standard condition of all severances where the road widening is not in place, and this secures that widening in this location.
Okay, any questions from members of council? It's pretty much self-explanatory, I would think. Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, excuse me, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry pass bylaw 63-2020, being a bylaw to dedicate part 1 on registered plan 14R-6487, part of lot 5, Indian lands in the former Township of South Glengarry. I presume that's former Township of something else.
Should be former Township of Charlottenburg, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Now in the Township of South Glengarry, pin number 67112-0103. As a public highway, read first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 19th day of October, 2020. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And the next one is the road widening dedication for Concession 9 Road. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. This is similar to the first report. However, this is something that should have been done back in 1988 when the road widening was surveyed through the former Township of Lancaster. There was a section created on Concession 9. This is a part of Concession 9 that is to the east of County Road 23, and it is the road that accesses Lancaster Heights, just to put some geographic perspective on it. It was surveyed in 1998, and the part abutting the surveyed section was actually severed in 2003, and everything was done as per the requirements of the severance, save and except for the registration of the road widening section and the passing of the respective bylaw to adopt that section as public road allowance. So this is cleaning up something that slipped through the cracks back in that time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry pass bylaw 64-2020, being a bylaw to dedicate parts 48 on registered plan 14R-2974, pin number 67153-0422, as public highway, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 19th day of October 2020. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. And we'll move to place seller dedication of 1 foot reserve. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is 1 foot reserve that was in place between the Place Saint Laurent Phase 3 and Place Saint Laurent Phase 4 subdivision phases on Saint Laurent Boulevard. At the last meeting of council, the road work and infrastructure work was accepted by council by resolution as per the conditions of the subdivision agreement. And with that taking place, we can now remove that 1 foot reserve as the road is deemed to be public based on the completion of the work and the acceptance of those works by council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 148-2020 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry remove the 1 foot reserve legally described as block 34 on plan 14M-9, pin number 67128-0344 on Saint Laurent Boulevard in Place Saint Laurent subdivision. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. We'll move to number 4, municipal office renovations. Mr. Mills, if you would, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just going to remind council about previous reports we've brought to you. I want to talk about a few things before I turn it over to Chief Robertson about the specifics for tonight's presentation about the renovations. And there are a number of reasons to consider office renovations. One is accessibility. So you'll see in there for an accessible washroom, counters, technology. There are things we need to consider as part of our accessibility plan, and we will be welcoming the public into this new space. Second is confidentiality, and a reminder back to budget discussions in 2019 leading into for 2020 budget. That having meeting rooms for the public was identified, and also confidentiality when talking to the public about matters, for example, on taxes or other things that they may bring to us of a concern. Health and safety is another one, and it's really accelerated this this item for us as staff because of COVID-19 and also security. There were funds budgeted. I will talk to budget later, and also Treasurer McDonald can too if necessary. But there was some funds budgeted towards the some renovations for the municipal office as part of the 2020 budget. We will require more, and we can discuss that after. I'll turn it over to Chief Robertson now to give the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mills, through you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to mention that this staff report that I'll be presenting with our CAO, but also we have had significant assistance on this through Mr. Lattiser, Director of Recreation Facilities, and Mr. McDonald, our treasurer. So on that note, back in August, well, the whole title of the office design and renovation started back early in the spring. And the last time we had come to council was in August, where we had a presentation from JL Richards, our architectural firm that was chosen to do the design and the considerations, working with staff to come up with a plan to move forward that we would present to you. In August, the firm, they proposed 2 options. One was a fairly basic option with a lot of details, but solid wood doors, solid drywall walls, not a lot of architectural features, those types of things. But then they also gave us an option 2 that had all glass doors. All the fronts of all the offices and the consultation rooms were all glass partitions. A lot of architectural features in the ceilings with lighting and those types of things. And you were presented with prices between 203 Class D pricing, I should say, with between $203,000 and $241,000 for the renovation. So since August, we have worked with JL Richards and with staff, and we have further assessed our needs with some comments from council and other members of staff other than the people on the committee. And we've tweaked the plan to what we think we would request as the project from staff. We think it will be very welcoming for the public. It will be an open and enjoyable place for our taxpayers to come to and for staff to work. So we've been able to reduce the overall price of the project while keeping with what we would consider the details that were discussed in option 2. We've lowered some of the glass partition levels. We had some concerns about privacy if everything was open glass with our consultation rooms, etc. So we've reduced some of the glass features. We've kept a lot of the architectural features that add the specialness to the spaces. So with those items, we've come up with through JL Richards, we've come up with a Class C opinion of probable construction costs. So that's sort of trade pricing. That's their estimate on fairly accurate trade pricing for the project. We are going to try to reuse some of the existing infrastructure, be it heating systems, those types of things. Some of it, they're explaining that we have certain areas of the building, certain areas of council chambers that in the past were either too hot or too cold. Those items, if they are going to be workspaces for the success of our staff, they need to be rectified. So the estimated project cost, the subtotal for construction cost comes in at $206,000. They have reduced the contingency for construction from 30% to 10%. And they've reduced the COVID contingency, which is basically just the uptick or the delay in availability of materials due to COVID. So they've put a 5% number to that. So the total, including contingencies, plus our end portion of the HST, brings the project to $241,000. So I'll turn it over for a moment to CAO Mills to speak to some of the ideas where it is our intention to receive funds from that we've already received them, but allocate the funds to, I should best say, and then I'll come back and speak to what our recommendation is. So.
Thank you very much, Chief Robertson, through you, Mr. Mayor. So as I noted earlier, there was $50,000 for the allocated to the 2020 budget, along with funds for modernization on technology, another $50,000. We had some funding that came initially through the Social Services Relief Fund through the province that is being managed through the City of Cornwall, and we have been allocated $114,000 there. Of course, we have some costs. Also with the Safe Restart funding, we have another $360,000 that's been allocated to the municipality. Some of that funding obviously is going to go towards things like PPE, cleaning supplies, staffing, additional staffing, particularly related to the arena and the startup of the arena and the ongoing measures to ensure safety at the arena. So we're confident that the funds are all covered. There were questions earlier about the ability to use Safe Restart money for capital projects per se, but staff have a plan in place for some of the smaller things that could be completed with the renovation that would not necessarily be considered capital purchases or high cost capital items. So we'll entertain questions at this point. If there are specifics related to finances, Treasurer McDonald is also on.
Okay, thank you. We did have a question from Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll ask this for Mr. Robertson. Dave, with your time in, I guess, in doing renovations and doing this kind of work in your previous life, what's your thoughts on the fact that now the average 2x6 is going for like $12 and a 2x4 at $9? Should we be filing these plans in a cabinet and waiting for those prices to balance back out and post-COVID-19 pandemic, or are we going to end up paying more in regular contracting inflation over the year or two that we'd have to wait?
Okay, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. On that note, I guess I'll make some assumptions, and by all means, they are only assumptions and opinions, but I think I'll start with saying some of the issues with opening and temporary closures due to COVID and in the past, what are we, almost 9 months now, 8 months. I think some of the items that through a newly renovated office are going to be successes for staff, and thus the product that we can provide to our citizens. As far as, so I think the sooner we do the project, the better for that reason. As far as the pricing goes, my assumption is that a lot of the uptick in building materials specifically relates to home renovations. And some of those items are not, I think some of the larger building materials, that market hasn't changed. So the steel commercial studs that we would use as opposed to wood studs that are used in do-it-yourself renovations, those types of things. When people have been home for the last 6 to 9 months, they've been doing a lot of those renovations and getting contractors to do them. But a lot of the commercial building materials, the prices really haven't changed. Structural steel, structural roofing, those prices have not changed throughout the year. So as far as the availability of contractors goes, I think that home renovation market is just about ending because of fall and late fall arriving by the time that we'll be ready to move forward with this. So I think that prices will, and the delays in manufacturing that we in the first quarter that we have, second quarter of 2020 that we that hit us due to COVID, I think those issues are going to rectify themselves and those prices are going to come back down. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave, I just have two quick questions. One in regards to the boardroom. Do we know what size that is?
The boardroom is, sorry, I'll just, I can look here. Oh, I'd have to, sorry, I should have had it in a little easier to, it's 4,600 millimeters by, so I'm going to say roughly 12 by 18, 12 by 14 by 20, in that range. My apologies, I should have written the exact dimensions down.
So quite large, quite bigger than what we have now.
Bigger than which room would compare that to?
The existing boardroom we have now.
Oh, yes, yes. The boardroom that was used in the past, this would be probably 50% larger. I'm going to make it, yeah, I think about that much larger.
Okay, that was a concern for a number of years, and ventilation was the other concern in respect of it because we're going into another boardroom without no outside windows, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
And
Okay.
this boardroom would also give yourselves as council a location now, because we are using that old boardroom as an office. This will give you as council and visiting dignitaries a place to make a home base during your meetings. So.
Okay, then the other question I have is in regards to the new office space in the council chambers. The walls, are they going right to the ceiling, or are they open walls, open spaces on top of the walls, or are they going right through where they're closed off?
We're going to take it right up to the existing ceiling. That was a bit of a discussion. We talked about airflow, then we talked about privacy, we talked about numerous things, but when we talked about with the mechanical people, they established that if it does go to the ceiling, we can better run IT and electrical, those types of items, and we can also better run heating and cooling. So their recommendation was to go to the ceiling.
Okay, I guess my concern was more privacy and noise throughout the office space, but
All
okay,
these,
any other? Yep.
so all these rooms, all these walls will be insulated within. For
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Robertson and CO Mills for the presentation. I am happy to see that there's been some cost, it's been dialed in. It's less than it was when we were first presented it. One thing that, and I do believe in the merits overall of the project, that that this is a better use of that space and having better spaces to help address public's needs, and also help the staff who are currently in the mix of the public be able to be more efficient. I think this is the right way to address that. But one thing that is of concern for me, and I'm hoping that there's support around the table for this, is that I think it's very important that as we move forward, that we can, again, to keep costs under control, as much as we can general contract this ourselves or using local contractors, local tradespeople. We discussed, I brought this up the last time, that, we are able, with our procurement program, we are able to favor small businesses. And oftentimes that also means it's favoring local businesses. So I'd like to bring that up again, that is something that I think we should strive for, particularly in that, with COVID, there are certain businesses that are having, it's good to inject this into our local economy if we can. The other question I had was with regards to the modernization funding. How much do we have left in that pot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to Mr. McDonald, who I had a discussion with earlier this evening about the amounts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 234,000 is unallocated. We started with 602,000. I guess there's 70,000 for rec master plan that we pushed off this year, still somewhat allocated, and we had talked about a rec facility review at $80,000. Those are included in that number I gave. So 234,000 remaining after those. We did the microphones, office redesign, energy efficiency study, modernization technologies, accessibility plan, and the route optimization study so far. So that's we've done all of those. We still have 234,000 left. So that's the number presently.
Okay, sorry, just so that I'm clear, the 230,000 includes for the rec master plan and the arena, or that's in
Correct.
The amount you've taken out?
There's 234,000 left with those things taken into account. Did I say that in a good enough?
Thank you.
So after spending those other two items you're talking about, we have 234,000 left.
Correct.
So just under half. We're a third left.
Mr. Mills
Okay,
or
thank
Mr. McDonald, sorry, Mr. Mills or Mr. McDonald, is there any dollars from the COVID-19 fund that we received from the upper levels of government that we could be using towards this renovations? If there's any offset costs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll start, and then Mr. McDonald can back me up. So at the beginning, I mentioned the Social Services Relief Fund. That was the initial funding that we got through the provincial government that is being managed through the city of Cornwall. We got almost $114,000 there. Then through the Safe Restart program, through Minister Steve Clark's office, $360,000. So they're between that and the modernization and what was budgeted in 2020. There's more than enough there. Also through you, Mr. Mayor, fair to the point that Councillor Jaworski brings up, we have discussed at length about the advantages and disadvantages of general contractor versus small business and the local business. and local contractors, and that's very much our desire, for that.
Okay, Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Additional to what CEO was saying, you'll see a resolution to support North Glengarry later on this meeting. And that's to support us to be able to use some of the Save Restart funding as capital. So I think it's being pulled. So just keep that in mind. We've also contacted the city to mention that this project is going to cost more than $114,000. So they have to see where they're at, and they'll be getting back to us as to if more funds are available to us or others. It's somewhat priority based, but we have reached out to see if we can secure more funding. And again, that North Glengarry resolution supporting that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's time to move forward on this project. I definitely am in favor of that. I think, I think these renovations are a must, and I know pricing's high. Hopefully, we can maybe save some money, kind of in the line of what Councillor Jaworski said. But I'm prepared to support this, and hopefully, everyone else will.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a discussion around the table with this council and the previous council, so I know it's certainly something that we need to make some changes for. This building was accurate, 20-some years ago when we amalgamated in 1998. But it's come to with the Privacy Act and everything that's out there now. I think the renovations are definitely warranted and needed at this point in time. So, any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 149-2020 be received, and that the project to renovate the municipal office proceed to the request for proposal phase, and that receive submissions and will be reviewed and presented to council at a future date. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mills and Mr. Robertson.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to request for warning device, County Road 27 and 19. I believe it's Chief Robertson and Mr. McDonald, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I put together a staff report with the request tonight. More or less, it's to bring a item to your knowledge and request that we ask the counties for some direction on this, or we propose a direction for counties. So the intersection of County Road 27, sometimes known as the Somerstown Side Road, and County Road 19, the South Branch, it's a major arterial roadway for South Glengarry residents. There are stop signs on that intersection for the north and south traffic with no requirement to stop in the east and west direction. So that's how it's set up. In the past year, your fire service has responded to 2 significant collisions at that location. In conversations with the OPP in the past 10 years, they pulled up basically 10 collisions at that location, and 2 of them actually involved school buses. So we would like to see some improvements made to the signage at this intersection. I'll let Mr. McDonald speak to some of the road considerations and some of the expectations, and then I'll come back and I'll just mention what we're requesting. So.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Chief Robertson, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The signage for an intersection is covered off in what is the Ontario Traffic Manual. It's a series of traffic books and manuals that provide guidance through technical and engineering studies that have been completed by professionals in the past. And these guidelines have created warrants for specific signage, such as stop signs, such as yield signs, etc. In this case, we have consideration of a beacon light or a street light or some sort of advanced warning or enhanced warning system for this intersection. And the warrants in the Ontario Traffic Manual include such things as sight lines, obstructions, curves, geometric issues on the road. And we know that this intersection doesn't really meet those warrants. However, one of the other warrants in the guideline is collision history. And we do know through the experience of our fire services and also from previous OPP reports that this intersection is prone to collisions and that it would meet the warrants for some enhanced signage, either through flashing beacons or amber lights over the intersection, similar to maybe Glenroy or Brownhouse Corners. The exact application in this case would be something that the counties would review pending the approval of the request to ask them to review the intersection. And I believe the warrants would support our position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to recap, this intersection and neither of these roads are South Glengarry infrastructure. So there would be no impact on the 2020 budget. It is our request of council that we do request of the counties, United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, that they review and work towards installing some type of warning device system at that location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dave and Ewan, maybe when you do send off a request to the counties, maybe if you're doing it by email, if you can CC myself and Deputy Mayor Warden, just so we're updated with it. If there's any concerns or questions, we can speak to the infrastructure department at the counties at the same time. So Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Has anybody reached out to Ben to call him? Because anytime I have a question, he's usually right on the ball with responses and stuff. He's done a traffic study in Lancaster and stuff. I just was kind of surprised to see it as an actual resolution as opposed to just sending off an email. I do see I realize the concern for it is good, but I just wondered if any staff members had reached out to Ben.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not. I don't think anybody in South Glengarry staff has. This staff report, I chose this tool more or less just to bring the information to yourselves as council. We highly suspect that the counties will be on board with doing something at this location with these statistics. So we think that there'll be a very good relationship moving forward. This was just a tool that I chose to advise yourselves. So.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just don't want it to be considered hostile, if you will, because it is technically a resolution of council, and I'm sure email probably would have hopefully got the same result. That's all.
Okay, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, I'd like to speak in favor of this. I've been at numerous accidents at that site and talked to numerous people who have actually gone through that intersection and had close calls, either by accidentally running the stop sign or somebody running it in front of them, and after you talk to them, they're still not sure how they did it. It wasn't neglect. They weren't trying to, to speed through there. Just there's something about that intersection that catches you the wrong way. I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's because the intersection down the road at the Glen, the stop signs are on the reverse and they forget which road they're on for a few minutes. I'm not sure what it is, but people do run that stop sign. And I think there's definitely a need of something there. And maybe it would have worked going through Ben at the counties, but I don't think this is a bad idea to make sure our council is all on board and in favor of this ahead of time. And then put it, I think it's right to go up the chain of command and then go to the counties and say, look, this is an issue we have, and we would like to see something done. So I'm speaking in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jaworski, and then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also in favor of this. Certainly, a number of accidents, and then, as I was going to mention, as like Councillor Lang, when you have accidents, typically there's a number of near misses that go along with it. So I think definitely, we should make that request. And I think going about it this way, make sure that we're all aware. It also gives an opportunity for the public to also know that this is something that we're looking into, and how we look at these situations and make these requests. So I think it was a good way of handling it, and I'm certainly in support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm also in support of this. My only concern is I don't know if lights is enough. I find I've had a near miss there as well. I'd like to see something along the lines of what they have in Chesterville at County Road 7 and 43. It's also very popular when I was in Alberta on long stretches of road where people might get up some speed, especially coming down that hill, and have the rumble strips about 100 meters or 150 meters ahead of time. Once you hit the rumble strips there, you'll never forget them. So.
Okay, I think the motion kind of it says, install a warning device system. So any particular warning device system that the counties will look at, I guess at this point, it's not one particular idea. I think it's open to anything in regards to what would solve the issue in that County Road 27 and 19.
More or less, my concern was don't cheap out and put a street light up.
Right.
Actually make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry request that the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry install a warning device system at the intersections of County Road 27 and 19. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Robertson and Mr. McDonald. We'll move to number 6, abandonment of Robinson Municipal Drain. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is pretty straightforward. All owners on the property are petitioning for it. They just want to braid pipe instead of an open ditch. I believe it has to do with tile drainage and wanting better cropland. I imagine instead of having that divot, now you have more land to farm, and it makes it easier to use the tractor. So we have all the signatures on the petition, including our own, because First Line Road is involved. And then it's up for council. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the costs associated with this, would that be borne by the landowners, or is that something that the municipality incurs?
You are quite correct, Deputy Mayor Warden. Sorry, it is borne by the landowners, much like any municipal drain work.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 151-2020 be received into the Council of the Corporation of the Township of South Glengarry. Proceed with passing bylaw 65-2020, being a bylaw to abandon the Robinson Municipal Drain. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And we'll go to the Bedard zoning amendment. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This zoning amendment application public meeting was held at our October 5th council meeting, so I believe it's fresh in council's mind. This property is located in the hamlet of North Lancaster and is known as a former corner store from many years ago. The applicant purchased this property earlier this summer, knowing that it has been a residential use for many years, and was able to obtain financing. But in order to finalize the mortgage, it was recommended, or required, I should say, by the mortgage company to rezone the property from commercial to residential, because that's been the use for many, many years. At the public meeting, we had no members of the public that participated, and therefore there were no negative comments. We have no concerns with the proposed zoning change, nor did the United Counties, seeing as how it's located on a county road. So the bylaw that's before you this evening is recommending to rezone the subject property from core commercial to residential 1 to recognize the existing residential use, which means there will never be a commercial use in that location. It'll always remain as residential if this is approved. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mrs. Haley. Any questions from members of council? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 152-2020 be received in bylaw 66-2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of South Glengarry for the property legally described as part of Lot 23, Concession 6, being Part 1 on Reference Plan 14R5187 in the former Township of Lancaster, now in the Township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, also known as 21141 County Road 18, be rezoned from core commercial to residential 1 to permit the subject property to be used for residential purposes only. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that no comments from the public were received on this application, therefore there was no effect on the decision. Heard the motion, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Saley.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move to other business. Note of a motion, support of SDNG and Eastern Ontario Warren Caucus resolution on safe restart funding. Deputy Mayor Warden, I believe you brought that forward for the last meeting.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, actually, we had a staff presentation today, basically outlining the reason why we should all support this. So I'll leave it at that and go from there. I think it's important that we should be able to use those funds for capital projects that will enhance the safety and prevent the spread.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments relating to that motion? Deputy Councillor McDonnell?
I'll second it if the motion needs one.
It sure does. Yep, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Whereas the Township of South Glengarry has been faced with significant increases to operating and capital expenses as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and has received $360,200 under the Safe Restart Agreement. Whereas the Township of South Glengarry has received the resolutions attached hereto from the Eastern Ontario Warrens Caucus and the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, urging the Ontario government to allow municipalities flexibility to spend safe restart funding as the municipality requires. Whereas the Township of South Glengarry shares the concerns of the United Counties and the Eastern Ontario Warrens Caucus and calls for Ontario government to allow for capital expenditures under the Safe Restart Agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry supports the attached resolutions and directs the clerk to forward the motion to Premier Ford, Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and MPP Jim McDonnell. You heard the motion, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. And notice of motion support a resolution for AODA website compliance. And I'll ask our clerk, Deputy Clerk, to speak on that one.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this resolution is from the town of Amherstburg, is one that as staff we were hoping council would be willing to support. The accessibilities for Ontario Disabilities Act is calling on all municipalities to have fully accessible websites by January 2021. While it's something we are striving towards, this year has given us some unprecedented challenges as far as attending training and having resources to devote to building the website as accessible as possible. We are still working towards it, but as the town of Amherstburg noted, it would be appreciated to have a bit more time to meet that deadline and resources if the Ontario government was willing to help direct some our way. So it's just a polite request to perhaps extend the deadline by another year to provide us more time to improve the quality of the product.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on that, Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with the clerk and I'll move the motion.
Thank you. If I can have somebody second the motion, please. Deputy Mayor Warden. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing none, I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Whereas the Township of South Glengarry remains committed to providing accessible service for all residents and visitors and continues to strive to meet the upcoming January 2021 compliance deadlines found in this Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. And whereas the Township of South Glengarry received a resolution from the municipality of Town, Amherstburg, attached hereto, requesting that the Ontario government grant an extension to January 1st, 2021, website accessibility deadline and consider providing funding and training resources for municipal staff. And whereas the Township of South Glengarry shares the concerns of the municipality of Town of Hammondsburg in relations to the economic impact COVID-19 has had on municipal resources and the need to consider how this has impacted municipalities' ability to prepare for this compliance deadline. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry supports the resolution from the municipality of Town of Hammondsburg and directs the clerk to forward a motion to Premier Ford, Raymond Cho, the Minister for Seniors and Accessibility, and MPP Jim McDonnell. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we'll move into other business in regards to the information ones that were pulled out. So we have a letter request for donation of service lands, Habitat for Humanity, Councillor Jaworski or Councillor Lang.
I'll go. You know, in terms of the request for land for Habitat for Humanity project, I know that the township donated in 2012, and I think we can all agree that that was a very successful project in moving a family out of substandard housing. And that specific homeowner now was quite the ambassador for the program. And even today at County Council, there was a discussion of the pressing need for affordable housing across counties. And also including highlighting the fact that South Glengarry has the smallest amount of affordable housing units at approximately half of what we find in our neighbors across SD&G. So Habitat for Humanity is perhaps a different take on affordable housing, but it's nonetheless a proven approach to helping individuals into home ownership. And so I would like us to seriously consider this request, and I would hope that it could go to staff for them to prepare a report on, you know, what are the options that we have and how this could move forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and that's along the similar lines as Councillor Jaworski. I just wanted to know if staff have done any work on this, if there was, you know, any ideas of lots that were available, this sort of thing. And if there wasn't, I thought maybe, you know, they could look into it and come back to us with a report in the next short while. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. I'd like to see this go forward. I had a conversation, I think a year ago now, at the one of the trade shows in Cornwall with one of the representatives from Habitat for Humanity, and they had mentioned that we had done it in the past. It was very successful. They had us as one of their a few pictures from that build. I think the deputy mayor was in some of those pictures. I think it'd be a good thing for whether it be Lancaster, Somerstown, anywhere in the municipality. I think it'd be a good fit.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden.
What they said, ditto.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll ask is send it back to staff through you, Mr. Mills, if you can direct that to the proper management team that you have. I believe it would be Mr. Ewan McDonald, but you can see fit.
I'd be happy to do that through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll move to number 3, letter request to rename community building Lancaster Optimist Club, Councillor Jaworski and Councillor Lang. So I'll ask Councillor Lang to start.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, I've seen this, and I think most of us had received a letter on our own at some point over the last month or so. Just wondering, I see in the staff reports a little further along that staff has met with the Optimist Club, and I just wondering how it's going and if we could get an update. I don't know who that's to, maybe Mr. Mills or whoever's been meeting with.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've had 2 meetings and other discussions on the phone. COVID-19 certainly has impacted the ability to move forward with, you know, the Optimist Club meeting live and or other things. The building has recently just been completed with review by Mr. Ladisser and Mr. McDonald with deficiencies, and now that we're pretty much ready to roll there. We've sodded the one side and seeded the other, and it looks quite good. We've recently reviewed the naming policy, although it hasn't been updated in a while. So what I would recommend is that we bring, after review with staff, that we bring further information back to council at a meeting in the not too distant future soon. The question, I guess, to council is that the Optimist Club is making the request for the name. And I don't have all of the background on the history per se. I think that would perhaps come from a delegation. So I'll speak to Ms. Donkers about perhaps a delegation that would come to council that would, along with the review of the policy, and then it would be back to council to decide.
I think that's appropriate, and maybe if she can, like you said, bring some background history in regards to renaming it and what they're hoping for, maybe a few different names in respect of what they were thinking about renaming it. And then council could decide if that's appropriate or if there was other thoughts that we had in mind.
That's kind of what I was wondering too, because I'm just not sure what, the request has been made. I'm not sure, anybody could make the request, what the criteria is and what the background is that would support that, so
Yep.
that's just so we can.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the first step now.
Yep.
We'll come back to you with a report referring to the naming policy, and we can go from there. Okay, and
Great.
I'll follow up with the Optimist Club.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Councillor Jaworski, you wanted to speak to the same?
Yeah, no, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm glad to hear that the discussion with the Optimist Club of Lancaster is continuing. I was not aware that we had a naming policy, so I look forward to that information. And I'd like to say, generally speaking, I think, our community centers that have a strong community group that is attached to them are the most successful ones. And so I definitely think that in general, how we can increase a sense of ownership and drive with these buildings, I think that makes a lot of sense. And certainly, I know that the Lancaster Optimist Club has done they do a lot of work within the community and specifically in that area. So I look forward to what staff will come back with. And I think the suggestion of having them specifically delegate to council to provide more detail beyond what's in the letter, I think that's a good way forward.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Mills will take a lead on that one, and he'll come back to us at a later date. Thank you. We'll move to number 9, Hazardous Waste Day 2020. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you through Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate staff, both in infrastructure services and our volunteers, many whom were from staff and from the fire service, who ran a very successful hazardous waste day, as evidenced by the volume of things that were brought in and the number of households that participated. And I think it's really fantastic that so much was diverted from our landfill. So I just wanted to say congratulations on that. And that I personally attended, and it ran extremely well. And there was great leadership shown by the staff there.
Okay, thank you. I think the rest of council can echo all your comments, so we appreciate that. Thank you. And building permit statistics, third quarter. This is Councillor Jaworski.
Yeah, again. I just wanted to highlight that there's a good news story in the building permits, and that, even though 2020 with the pandemic happening, our overall dollar value of construction value that's been permitted is actually about $1.5 million higher than 2019. And also the number of permits is also higher. So I wanted to highlight that good news story for our area, and also to thank staff on obviously doing an excellent job supporting that work in what can be more challenging times than usual.
Yeah, I agree. The staff have been doing extremely well in respect to getting everything through under these circumstances, and it's nice to see those dollars increasing as the years goes on. So thanks for that. Okay, I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information only. For the motion, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we will go to unfinished business. Mr. McDonald, Dockson Township property, any update with the balance of the homeowners there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we are working with property owners on those remaining lots and should have them secured shortly. We have had to make one minor change as we initially on the survey did not include the intake pipe from the water. We just included the area around the standpipe for the dry hydrants. So there has been a modification that has had an impact on a couple of the lots, and we're just awaiting for those the revised survey to finalize those. But both of those abutting properties to that dry hydrant have submitted their offer to purchase. It's just a matter of the revision on the survey that needs to be completed. So we're moving towards having all of these properties sold as per the direction of council.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. And fire protection ponds?
Chief Robertson and I are going to be meeting with 2 out of the 3 businesses that are currently receiving services. The third one, I still have to reach out to them, but we are following up on council's direction, and we'll be meeting with.
Okay, and municipal servicing from the city of Cornwall. I understand we have another meeting on Thursday with EVB. Yeah, he has. So until Johan comes back, we have further discussions with EVB in respect to the water from the city of Cornwall. Councillor Jaworski.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick comment on that. Just, recently in the media, it was reported that, Cornwall wants to install, is looking at installing meters so that the cost, the expenses related to their system is more equitably distributed amongst their users, in particular the industrial users, and that they're concerned that water rates would increase because water usage will go down. And I'm hoping that our steering committee is looking at how the fact that, South Glengarry here is looking at becoming a water user to the, the city of Cornwall, and that we can help the city of Cornwall reduce the water rates for their citizens by participating in, spreading out that cost. So I'm hoping that that's something that's going to be brought up within the steering committee about how that, how we can help the city of Cornwall solve that issue.
No, thank you very much. That's a good point. That's something we'll take into consideration when we have further discussions. So thank you for that. Okay, I think Mr. McDonald has froze, so we'll come back to him if he does return. And we can go to corporate services, review of water rates and water bill design. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is turning into the Mick report here. Hopefully get Mick off sometime soon. These are water. The bill, as we discussed, it's with VATM, and then our rates we're preparing for our billing, and we said that we'd put a flyer in with the billing to send a link to our website, at which point that will be our public consultation. So that part of it is just going to happen later this week or early next week. Just looking at the time down there. We had our bill meter reading today, so that's our progress. And as for the bill, VATM is just waiting on one thing for me. They got back to me on Friday. So that's been a back and forth, but both are being nudged along.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski and then Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I was just hoping that Mr. McDonald could share the insert that is being planned on sharing, particularly for those of us who are not on the municipal water system, so that we can see that, please.
Certainly, I can do that. I have it drafted, so I'll send it tomorrow morning or afternoon sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
My question was the insert going to be in the emails that are opened? Will it be an electronic insert as well?
Yes, it will go to our electronic users that way, and our paper users by paper copy.
I'd like to see. Yeah.
If I'm wrong in that, the electronic users would get a paper copy, but I'm pretty sure we can do both. I see. Deputy McDonald knows best on these things.
Just through you, we would probably have to send a link to it on the website. It is an issue with our e-billing that if we try to attach anything, they don't seem to go through. But we would make sure that bill users see that information.
So I suppose instead of a paper, Deputy Clerk MacDonald is saying is it would be a link to our website, and there they would have that thing. So that would be sent electronically.
Okay, thank you. Mr. MacDonald, are you back with us?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. I don't know what happened. My internet just blipped out and I'm back in, so.
Yeah, well, that's technology. So we already spoke about the municipal services from the city of Cornwall, so we'll move to number 4, which is private roads, development and document.
Yeah, no update on that item at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And the Williamstown Garage and Fire Hall, I think we all know that, but
Correct. The route optimization study is near, well, is at completion. There hasn't been any follow-up comments other than the ones we received at the meeting from members of council. So I'll be speaking with the consultant on those, and then we can finalize the report for moving forward.
thank you. And the last one is the LED streetlights, Glen Walter.
Yeah, I'm pleased to say that we have had some movement in this area. We have been in discussions with Cornwall Electric, and they have provided us with a proposal to move the project forward. We're doing some investigation on that proposal and the details of such, and should have a follow-up council or a staff report for the meetings in November, hopefully the first one, but if we don't get all of the information together, it might be the second meeting. But we are working with the consultant that previously did the LED conversion in the Hydro 1 utility area, as they are currently doing some other work in Cornwall as well. So we're following up, and Cornwall Electric has provided us a proposal and are on board as we move forward. So the details will be forthcoming.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. McDonald. That's at least encouraging this week. If we could, for the first meeting in November, at least get some form of update, whether, I don't know if it would have to be, I'm just kind of more or less looking at if we can kind of get a rough timeline, and if we're able to look at how we're going to proceed with this, if we're as far as going through the consultant, as well as who will be doing the work, if we'll be going to tender on that job, or if we'll be going to a sole source, or how we'll be going about that. So I'd like to just get a little bit more information before we do proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I might not have all of the details that Councillor McDonnell is looking for, but we should be able to provide some framework.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that bylaw number 67-2020 to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 19th day of October 2020. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. And if there's nothing further, I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 8:28 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week.
Thank you very much.